Dun, 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 dun. Woo. Good morning, America. Coming to you live on YouTube and on Facebook every day at 10:30 in the morning. We come out and talk to you about sports, and more sports. Today we're going to dedicate this show to what is going to happen this weekend in the NFL. Should be an amazing weekend. Got a huge show. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson and his new outrage. Top coaching vacancies across the NFL. We'll rank them 1 to 5. We'll talk about who's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. The nominees around. We think we know what's going to happen. Then Lance Fernandez will be joining us, and we'll be talking about our playoff picks for the weekend. We'll dive into the mailbag, and then we're going to end the show with a super happy story about a guy who can die happy. It's kind of weird, but that's what we're going to be talking about today on the What's on Sports podcast. My name is John Todora, and I'll be your host throughout this wacky ride that we're going to take throughout the sports landscape. I do want to remind everybody before we go any further, if you're watching at home, if you're listening, you probably can't see this. You can listen to the show, download it on all of your favorite podcast platforms. But if you're watching at home, you can probably see the little thing on the top here that tells you that our show is sponsored by our friends over at Sports Trading Systems. Today, you can go over to Sports Trading System and learn the secret to how this new system, this new methodology is changing the landscape of sports wagering and taking it from a game of risk into a game of investments. That's right. You can learn how to trade sports like other people trade stocks over at sportstradingsystems.com. Just go over there right now. Check it out. It's your time to do it. These guys are just destroying the game right now. Up 68% in the NBA season so far this year. And if you don't know what that means if you would have invested $1,000 into a bankroll, you'd right now have $1,680 2 weeks into a NBA basketball season. I mean, they are absolutely crushing it over there, looking at record numbers. So go over and check out sportstradingsystems.com today. Now, there are some things I want to talk about. And one of the things I want to kind of get off my chest is when I think of sports, I always think of it for what it is. Sports is entertainment. Therefore, it is a business. It's being run by somebody who actually owns the business. Sometimes it's being run by, as in Green Bay, by a conglomerate of people. There are investors. There are people that have put money at risk and at stake that have a chance to lose money every year. Now, the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, most of these teams never lose money. But somebody somewhere along the way had to risk money somewhere in order to get enough money to buy an NFL team. Now, for older team members, like owners like the Rooneys or the owners of the Giants, they've owned these teams for so long that they paid very little for them compared to what today's value is. But at some point, somebody made an investment and somebody made a risk. And therefore, as with any business, whoever makes that risk is usually the one who should make the decisions. They make the decisions for what they think is best for their company and for their brand. There's a new age of sports out there, though, and these new players are constantly thinking, or have been told, even by the media, that they should have decisions on how teams are run. For example, LeBron James is famously known for constructing his rosters in Cleveland, with the Lakers right now, and even had some stay whenever he was playing for the Heat. I don't see a lot wrong with that in particular. Deciding who you want to play with is one thing. Deciding the finances of sports is something completely different. Deciding who your coach should be doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Like when they talk about these players who are upset that they didn't get a chance to pick their coach, I'm always like, why would you get to pick who's going to be your coach? What qualifies you to decide who should lead this team and who should teach everyone on this team, not just yourself? You are a player. Similarly, imagine owning a restaurant, your chef telling you who you should hire as your manager or who you should hire as your waitresses. The chef should take care of the kitchen and could be fully in charge of all the cooks, the dishwashers, and anything else that happens inside his department. That's how businesses are run. Successful businesses are compartmentalized, and different parts of the businesses are run by different people. Well, that brings us to what I'm talking about today, which is Mr. Deshaun Watson, who is the quarterback for the Houston Texans. And Deshaun Watson has come out, and not publicly, but through proxies, has said that he's very upset with the fact that the Houston Texans have hired a general manager and that Mr. Watson was not consulted. Mr. Watson, who is a 25-year-old quarterback who has done very little in his life except be an exceptional football player, thinks that he, for some reason, should have been consulted on who is going to guide the entire franchise. I don't understand the logic here. A general manager has so many jobs, and it really depends from team to team, how each organization runs, what they run, and what the responsibilities of each general manager is. But for those of you that think the general manager is just simply the guy who hires the coach and helps with the draft, and that's all he does, you're really confused. What you're really dealing with is someone who deals with most of the time, all aspects of the football organization. And it could be anything from making sure that the locker rooms are up to COVID specifications, the salary cap. It could be ticket sales. It could be concession sales. It could be all of these things that could be encompassed inside the general manager's job. So I would imagine that the best person to pick someone who's going to manage the day-to-day business of their operation would be the owner of the business, or at the very least, some type of board of directors that would make the decision. Then the general manager would pick the coach, and the coach would pick the players. Now, most times coaches get there and there's already players in place. But at no time, especially in the NFL, has an NFL player had the opportunity to pick his own coach and to pick his own general manager. Deshaun Watson should not have that ability. No player should, in fact. I don't care. Tom Brady's 42 years old and had zero control over anything when he left New England. Now, there is some rumor and some speculation that Tom has had some say in some of the players he'd like to come play for him in Tampa. And that's fine. I think Tom Brady should throw to the players he'd like to throw to, especially if the team can afford them. So if you want to bring in an Antonio Brown on a personal relationship, you want to bring in a Gronkowski on a personal relationship, you should be able to do that. That should be something that you're allowed to do. But you should not be allowed to pick your coach. You should not be allowed to pick your general manager. And anybody on TV right now who is telling you that Deshaun Watson should have anything to do with picking these people is out of their mind. This is not a new world. This is the same world we've lived in for a very long time. And people who know business should decide business. And people who throw good balls should throw good balls. I would gladly accept the opinion of Deshaun Watson on anything that had to do with football. I would not accept his opinion on anything that had to do with business. That's just the way it goes. That's my opinion on Deshaun Watson. Welcome to the What's on Sports podcast. There are people watching on YouTube. There are people watching on Facebook. Again, my name is John Todora. I am your host today. And now we're going to talk about something that I am so serious about. These are the top coaching vacancies in the NFL, ranked according to the way I see them. Let's talk about these coaching vacancies. There are 6 vacancies right now, and I believe there'll be at least a few more over the next few days. To me, the worst coaching position that's available right now is the Houston Texans. Obviously, you have to deal with what I talked about earlier, that Deshaun Watson situation, who thinks that he should pick a quarterback. That he should pick a coach. And if he doesn't get to pick a coach, is he going to be upset? Is he going to demand a trade? Are you even taking a team that has one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL? If you decide to be coach, or are you going to become the coach and lose your quarterback right away? Along with the quarterback situation, you have a J.J. Watt situation. J.J. Watt, leader of the team, owed $17 million next year. If he's cut, they owe him $0. So this is a team in serious cap problems, because Bill O'Brien should have never been a general manager of that team, and has put the team in a bad situation with no draft picks coming up, or very few, no number 1, no number 2, and a bad cap situation. This is a team in need of a total rebuild. So I would not want to be the coach of the Houston Texans. I think it's a bad idea. Atlanta Falcons, Arthur Blank, who's the owner, just came out yesterday and said that he would be open to trading Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. That's your franchise quarterback, and at least your number 2 wide receiver, probably number 1. He didn't have the best year on his team this year, but Julio's still a force. So you're taking over a team that has been absolutely awful all year long, has very few good parts, and the good parts that you have, the owner is willing to trade away and start over again. So would I take that team? No, I would not. Number 4 on the list, the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, I mean, listen, that is a franchise that is mired in absolute disaster constantly. It's been a franchise that's been almost impossible to make competitive on. Let's say not almost impossible. Let's just say impossible to make competitive. So I would say that that's a team that I would want nothing to do with. Number 3 on the list, Jacksonville Jaguars. Everybody's super hyped on Jacksonville right now. Super, super hyped based on the fact that the Jacksonville Jaguars have the number 1 pick, which means they're going to get the Trevor Lawrence. So that's all great. That's all fine and good. You're going to get Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is going to be the best football player out of that draft, maybe. But here's the problem in Jacksonville. Nobody wants to stay there. That is a terrible culture. It's been a terrible culture for years. That team has had a lot of trouble keeping players there. Now, there's a lot to do with that. Jacksonville is a wonderful, wonderful city. In fact, our company has a home base in Jacksonville. Been there a few times. I work remotely. Been there a few times. Great people, great atmosphere, super friendly. Not a lot to do in Jacksonville, though. You're an NFL player. You want to go out. You want to party. You want to have that kind of lifestyle. It's not for you in Jacksonville. You got a wife and 2 kids. It's a perfect place for you. A guy like Phillip Rivers would love Jacksonville. Great place to raise your children. Not a great place to go party. No state tax, which is nice, but just not a great place to hang out and party. And something about that culture has had trouble keeping superstars. Number 2 on my list, the New York Jets. Now, I know you can say the same thing about the Jets. The Jets have been a disaster for a long time. But it's New York, baby. It's New York. I think they have a decent quarterback right now. If you stick with Sam Darnold, you can build through the draft and make yourself a really good team. If not, you've got a shot at Jason Fields out of Ohio State. And if you take Fields, you can still keep Darnold for a year, trade Darnold to get more draft capital back. I think the Jets are loaded in the draft as far as how many picks they have. They've got salary cap space. It's a team that could be built if the right coach comes in and sets the right culture. And again, it's New York. Players are going to want to play in New York, especially if you can show them that team is on the turnaround. And number 1 on my list, and I think this one is a no-brainer, the San Diego Chargers is the best job in football right now. I mean, you got a quarterback who might be top 7 in the NFL in his first year. You've got some defensive players that are absolutely fantastic. You got one of the Bosa brothers. You got a pass rush. You got an offensive line. You've got wide receivers. Like that team is really, you got a great tight end. You've got decent running backs. That team is really, really loaded. And they have all their picks coming up in the next few years. So if you're looking at me and asking me what job I would take out of anything, San Diego, baby. Now, high state income tax, which is obviously going to affect somebody who goes out there. But San Diego is a beautiful city too. It's a great place to go hang out. It's a great place to recruit players to come and play. Hey, come out to sunny San Diego. You've been working in Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Cleveland, Cincinnati, freezing your butt off all year long. Come out to San Diego where it's 75 all year long. And when in the summertime it gets to be 85, it's beautiful, beautiful women, beautiful sunsets. You're on the beach. Lot to sell with San Diego. To me, that is the number 1 job right now. They should be treating it that way. They should be saying to themselves, we are the San Diego Chargers, and we're actually, they're in LA now, but we are the LA Chargers, and we are I can't believe somebody wrote down San Diego, and I just went off and on about it. Anyway, they're in LA, which is even better. The LA Chargers is the number 1 job in my opinion. All right. We got a good show planned here for you guys. We got a great show planned for you. Lots of fun things coming up. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to slide some things around because I had a guest and I lost him somewhere along the way. And I'm going to actually go around here right now and I'm going to change the show around and we're going to talk about our mailbag. So each week let me try that again. Each week we actually dig into our mailbag over on our website, which is What's on Sports. People actually leave all sorts of great comments and they're always asking us, can we ask you a question and maybe you guys can answer? And we feel free to do it. We let people jump in and ask these questions. So what we do is we call it our mailbag. And I'm going to dive in and I'm going to answer these questions right now. Our first question of the day, Falcons owner Arthur Blank said that Matt Ryan is tradable. Will he attract interest from other NFL teams? No. The answer quite simply is no. Matt Ryan is guaranteed $90 million over the next 3 years. Whoever trades for him will have to take on that salary. So you only take Matt Ryan if you're this close to being a champion. So there aren't a lot of teams that I can think about right now that are this close that just need a quarterback. Now, you may say to yourself, well, what about New Orleans? New Orleans might be able to take him. Well, if New Orleans doesn't believe that they have a quarterback on their roster, and I think they believe they have 2, if they don't believe they have a quarterback on their roster that can actually play, well, then there's going to be maybe some conversation there. What about Indianapolis? Indianapolis is going through a Phillip Rivers experiment right now, which very well could be ending very, very soon. So if it were to end, then I would say that maybe Indianapolis could be someone that we can see Matt Ryan being traded to. Now, the other question is Is he tradable? Maybe. What are they going to ask for him? So in order to take on a $30 million salary, what are you willing to give up? Most people aren't willing to give up a second or third round draft pick for something like that. That's strong draft capital that could bring you a superstar for the future. So it would have to be a team that's in the perfect situation. If you're asking me if Matt Ryan is tradable, look, any deal can get done in business, but this one will be very tough to make happen. Let's take our next question. Earl Thomas had disappointing endings in his stints with the Seahawks and the Ravens. Will he ever play in the NFL again? I would say the answer is no. At the very end of his run in Seattle and at the very end of his run at the Ravens, Earl Thomas was really framed as a malcontent. So for the amount of money that somebody like Earl Thomas demands, which at one point he could have very easily said, I deserve that money, and most people would have agreed. For the amount of money that Earl Thomas would ask for, I don't think a lot of people are going to be willing to pay that kind of money. I think you're dealing with a player who has a lot of off the field, on the field issues that have maybe rubbed teammates the wrong way. And when people hear about that, you don't want to deal with a player like that. Now, you deal with a player like that that's still on his peak playing performance, you think you can make it work. Earl Thomas is not that player anymore. Earl Thomas, in fact, had been sliding as a player for quite a bit and has continued to slide. So I don't see Earl Thomas being that guy. All right, last on the list for our mailbag. Do you see a scenario wherein Jimmy Garoppolo returns to the New England Patriots? I do not. And this one is really simple to me. For those of the people out there that actually follow what Bill Belichick does and how Bill Belichick has been able to build the dynasty that he was able to build over the last 17 years, to me, it's a very simple recipe. I mean, obviously, Bill is all about the details. He's all about the coaching, and he's all about making sure he gets his hands on as many smart players as he can. And the only way Bill can do that is by, A, getting as many draft picks as possible. I can't even tell you how many times over the last couple of years that Bill Belichick has traded down out of the first round or second round to accumulate more picks later on. Because Bill Belichick actually realizes something that the other 31 teams haven't figured out yet. The NFL draft is not an exact science. In fact, it's a crapshoot. So you never know what you're going to get. So Bill, I think, has these measurables that he likes, and I think one of them is an intelligence factor, football IQ, and I think Bill values that over anything else. And because of that, because of the fact that Bill values that more than anything, Bill will draft as many players as he can. Now, what does this mean about Jimmy Garoppolo? Basically, you're not going to get Jimmy Garoppolo for free. Someone is going to ask for a lot of draft picks, some draft picks. And I don't think that Bill Belichick is willing to give away that kind of draft capital. Now, the other issue is that contract. Jimmy Garoppolo's still got 2 years left on the contract, and it's a big one. It's not a small contract. So New England's pretty tight up against the cap. So there would have to be some real major adjustments done in order to bring Garoppolo back into a system where he used to be okay in. Now, there's also the discussion of Jimmy Garoppolo's actual play, which has been on the downslide. Last year, Garoppolo was serviceable, not great. If he was going to take the leap, this would have been the year he took the leap. And guys, I got to tell you, right now, we're just not seeing that leap from Garoppolo. So, do I see a scenario where Jimmy Garoppolo returns to the New England Patriots? Only if he's cut. If he's cut, if he goes to the Patriots on a cheap, kind of veteran deal, I see it happening. On a straight up trade, I do not see it happening. And that's our mailbag for the day. If you guys want to leave us any questions, drop some information, go over to our website, which is whatsonsports.com today, so that you can, leave us some information, give us some content to help us out with the show. Now, speaking of content that will help us out with the show, ladies and gentlemen, joining us right now, he's one of our head writers over at What's on Sports. Used to work for Fox Sports, but today he's just here with us. I like to see that big, beautiful head. Lance Fernandez in the house. Lance, how are you?
Doing awesome, John. Hope you're doing well as well.
I'm doing good, man. I saw you jump in and out there. All the technical problems are okay, though, buddy?
Yeah, I guess somebody must have done some voodoo on us. Maybe it's Deshaun Watson, but I guess we have reversed that curse already.
Could be Deshaun Watson. Could be the Chiefs fans. Could be anything, right?
Could be Kyrie Irving also,
Yeah, that's true. That's true, because I'm broadcasting from the other side of the flat earth. Yeah. All right, listen, while I got you here, there's a couple things I want to talk to you about. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the Hall of Fame. The NFL just came out with their new list of Hall of Fame members, at least Hall of Fame nominees, and I want to go over them with you here today because my understanding is you're writing an editorial piece on this very same subject.
Yes, so there are currently 15 semifinalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2021. And that already includes the senior finalists in Bill Dunn, who was a longtime scout, and Drew Pearson, a former Cowboys wide receiver. And of course, we also have Tom Flores, the former Raiders head coach. So aside from them, there are 15 finalists. And by law of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they can elect from 4 up until 8 in any given year. So if we are to take the maximum for this year, so you have 3 senior candidates, and you can add 5 more players to the list.
Okay, all right. So let me ask you a question: who's up for nomination this year? Like, is there anybody of notoriety?
Okay, so I've actually selected who I think would make it to the class of 2021, and I think that this class will max out for this year because there's just so much talent. It's loaded with personalities, loaded with players who have proven their worth in the NFL and have won in the big stage as well. So from all of those 15, I believe that these 5 players stand among the rest, and they deserve to enter Canton, Ohio.
All right, let me hear what you got.
Okay, first person is a no-brainer. It's Peyton Manning. First year of eligibility, 2-time Super Bowl winner, 1 with the Colts, 1 with the Broncos, 5-time NFL MVP, 7-time first-team All-Pro by the Associated Press, holds the single-season record for passing yards, career records in passing yards and passing touchdowns, and 13 consecutive seasons with at least 25 passing yards. And more importantly, he was able to bounce back and win a title despite a broken neck with Indianapolis. That alone is a Hall of Fame distinction for one Peyton Manning.
Yeah, for me, I think Peyton Manning just comes down to one simple statement, and it's the greatest quarterback of all time. A lot of people say it's Tom Brady. A lot of people talk about other people. To me, Peyton Manning is without a shadow of a doubt the greatest quarterback of all time because he revolutionized the way quarterbacks thought about the game. The way he was out there really just manipulating defenses, and the things that he did were next level compared to a lot of other players. So you could talk about guys like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, quote unquote, revolutionizing the quarterback position. Peyton Manning revolutionized it far more than either one of those guys, I think, ever will, in my opinion, because it's been emulated so much now. So Peyton Manning's a no-brainer. Who's next on your list?
Another easy choice for the class of 2021. It's Megatron. Calvin Johnson played only 9 seasons, but 7 of those he got at least 1,000 yards in receiving. It helps to have a Matthew Stafford, but he was just a man among boys when he was playing for Detroit. He gave the franchise some relevance during his years, and he was selected to 3 first-team All-Pro selections. He has the record for most receiving yards in one season, which is close to 2,000 yards. And nobody can just stop him, especially in single coverage. So Calvin Johnson, despite playing for just 9 seasons, he really had some records and really had the numbers to prove that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, a player like Calvin Johnson, for those people that never got to see him play, to me, a little longer career, and he would have been the best we ever saw. For periods, he very well could have been. He was literally unstoppable at some points. And you look, Matthew Stafford was a decent quarterback, never great, looked a lot better because of a guy like Megatron. Megatron never had anybody of any substance really that lined across from him. There was never like a great run game there. It was the Megatron show for a long time. I can't even tell you, looking at highlights, how many times I saw Megatron make these jump catches and these amazing plays that were just fantastic and fascinating to me. And yes, he's a first, in my opinion, a first ballot Hall of Famer all the way.
No doubt about it. He's a cheat code when he's on the field.
Absolutely. Who's next?
Third on the list. We go to the defensive side of the ball. Again, this is one of the first year eligible for the ballot. It's Charles Woodson. Played for the Raiders. Won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. 1998 Defensive Rookie of the Year. 2009 Defensive Player of the Year. His 65 career interceptions are 5th most in the NFL. And he has an interception, at least one interception, that is, in all of his 18 seasons. He has led the league in interceptions twice. That's in 2009 and 2011. And he's only the second player in NFL history to win the Heisman, to win a rookie distinction, a player of the year distinction, and a Super Bowl. First being Marcus Allen. So without a doubt, head and shoulders, hands down, Charles Woodson should be in Canton as well.
Just an amazing football player. And what a lot of people don't remember is Charles Woodson came into the NFL as a kick returner, punt returner / cornerback, and eventually transitioned to safety. And a lot of people just remember him as a safety, but Woodson was a lockdown corner when there were no lockdown corners, then became an amazing safety. The guy's really literally just a football player. Could play in the box, could play the deep thirds, could cover man-to-man. Really, really well-deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. Great choice. Who's next on your list?
You would like this next choice because it's one of your hometown boys. And we go to the trenches. It's Alan Faneca. Yeah, yes. Longtime guard for the Pittsburgh Steelers, also played for the New York Jets. And picture this, he has blocked for 3 1,000-yard rushers. That's Willie Parker, Thomas Jones, and Jerome Bettis. That's the biggest distinction or the biggest award that you can have as a lineman, an offensive lineman at that, is to dig holes and create seams for your runners to pass through. And Alan Faneca was one of the best. And who could ever forget that play in Super Bowl 40 when he had to drag and to be able to extend the play with Ben Roethlisberger. 6-time first-team All-Pro Alan Faneca started 201 out of 206 career games in 13 seasons.
Wow. Crazy.
And then he helped his teams get 11 top 10 rankings in rushing offense. So without question, Alan Faneca deserves to be part of the class of 2021.
Yeah, as a Steeler fan, it was a pleasure to watch that offensive line during the time that Faneca was there, mainly because you knew that at left guard, Alan Faneca was always going to have his man. He was a great pulling guard. He was great at pass blocking. Of course, he was kind of a nasty guy, so he would just maul you as well. Really, really well-deserved pick. Faneca got skipped over last year, so it's really nice to see him go in this year. Who's your last pick that's a guarantee this year?
Okay, completing the list of who I think will enter the 2021 class Pro Football Hall of Fame is Jared Allen. So we go defense once again. Jared Allen, 4-time first-team All-Pro, leads the NFL or ties with the lead in the NFL for safeties with 4. 136 career sacks and led the league in sacks for 2 seasons. And just like Alan Faneca, who is a model of durability, Jared Allen started in 181 out of 187 career games. And he's just a menace from that edge. Jared Allen, wherever he plays, no matter what jersey he wears, he was just a terrifying presence as he comes down for the quarterback. So hands down, Jared Allen deserves to be in this class as well.
Look, Jared Allen would have been a much more popular, much more well thought of player had he not played in Minnesota for most of his career. Nothing offensive about the Minnesota Vikings. They're just not a huge market. They're not great at marketing. But when Allen played for Minnesota, he was fierce, absolutely fierce. Another great choice. Those are your 5, right?
Yep, those are my 5.
I'd like to throw one in there for myself. Again, this is a hometown pick, but it makes sense in the history of football. But Bill Nunn, you mentioned him earlier. He was a scout for the 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers. Bill Nunn is responsible for scouting that super team that has all those Hall of Fame players in there. He was the lead scout. He was the scout for the 1974 draft that brought in 4 Hall of Famers, including John Stallworth. And here's a quick story about Bill Nunn and Chuck Noll. Bill Nunn discovered John Stallworth at the University of Southern Mississippi, I believe it is. And at the time, there was no internet. There were no digital tapes. They would share tapes. So colleges would make a tape for a player. They would make maybe 1 or 2 duplicates, and they would send them out to NFL teams. When NFL teams were done looking at them, they would send it to the next team. Well, Pittsburgh got the scouting tape of John Stallworth, who was a wide receiver, looked at it and said, this guy's a first-round draft choice, but no one's going to know it because he's down at this little small university. And they were supposed to send the tape to the next team, and they lost it and never sent it anywhere. So Pittsburgh was the only team to ever see the tape, and they took Lynn Swann in the first round. They took Jack Lambert in the second round, and they waited until the third round and took John Stallworth. Stallworth was very upset about what had happened, thought he was a first-round guy, found out later what happened. It worked out for him. He ended up being one of the faces of the franchise, but it's the only time in history that a team is drafted first, second, third, fourth round was Mike Webster. first 4 rounds, all 4 guys went to the Hall of Fame. That was all because of Bill Nunn. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I really hope that he gets it because scouts, guys like that, never get that opportunity. All right. Thanks very much for the Hall of Fame wrap-up. I'm excited to see what's going to happen there. I'm actually excited to see how they're going to handle the whole thing because last year the players never got to give their speeches. So are they going to let those guys talk and then these guys talk as well? So it's kind of an interesting way they're going to do it because of COVID. Who knows if they can even do the ceremony again this year? Does this mean they'll never do ceremonies again? It's a weird world we live in because of COVID. But let's talk about our next subject, though. This is the first time in history that there will be not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 playoff games in one weekend. This has never happened before in the NFL, and they're calling it Super Playoff Weekend. I'm sorry, Super Wild Card Weekend. I stand corrected again. So today, you and I are going to be talking about who we think is going to win these games. Now, I would normally do odds because, I'm an odds guy, and I was going to go bring the odds with me. And I decided today that instead of doing that, since our sponsor is the people over at sportstradingsystems.com, that instead of doing picks with odds, some of these games are so evenly matched, I thought we should just do picks straight up. So we're going to start off with the Los Angeles Rams against the Seattle Seahawks. Lance, you get to go first.
Okay, so before I pick, if you're not excited for the Super Wild Card Weekend, I don't know what can excite you in life because you have exactly 6 playoff games in 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. So going back, LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks, I would go for an upset here. I think the Rams will win. They have a stout defense, and at the same time, the Seattle's pass defense is just suspect. With Cooper Kupp coming back, I guess the Rams will be able to do enough with the passing game to be able to upset the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, this is a very interesting game. A lot of the experts are picking Seattle, and to me, I think you're onto something, but not for the reasons that you're saying. I think you're onto something because the Rams are one of the few teams that have a cornerback that can shut down DK Metcalf. The Rams are one of the few teams that can actually blow up the pocket on Russell Wilson and force him to scramble more than he really wants to. So those two factors in themselves, the fact that you can cover one of the most dangerous weapons in the NFL, the fact that you can make your quarterback scramble and make him have to rush, I'm with you on this one. Without looking at any odds, straight up, I think the LA Rams have a fantastic chance to take out the Seattle Seahawks. We've got the New Orleans Saints against the Chicago Bears. Chicago kind of like backdoored their way into the playoffs with a really nice run at the end of the season. Mitchell Trubisky really came along, but at the same time, Drew Brees is starting to catch his wind again. Maybe the ribs aren't bothering him as much. I'd say maybe he's 85 to 80%, something like that. So what do you think about Chicago and New Orleans?
I would have to respect Chicago's defense, especially their pass defense. So I see Alvin Kamara struggling early, but he will pick up his feet and gain his yardage towards the latter part of the game. But I don't see any reason why the Chicago Bears will win against the New Orleans Saints. They have the more rounded squad in terms of offense. They have all the weapons, be it in the aerial attack or the ground game. And not to mention that defense that has been underrated for the entire season. They have a Marshall Lattimore who can also shut down the opponent's wide receivers. And once that front four can get pressure off the line, Mitchell Trubisky will be toast. So I don't see any reason Chicago will be able to pull off an upset. So this will be easy, New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, look, there wasn't up until a few weeks ago, I was saying New Orleans was the best team in football. They had a streak there where they were just unstoppable and on both sides of the ball. So if you get a Drew Brees back who's operating at 85%, you got a decent running game. You got Alvin Kamara scoring 6 touchdowns a game. You got a great pass rush. You got Lattimore and the boys in the back, the back half of the field covering guys. I think this is a tough game. I think this is a tough game, and I think that tough game for Chicago. I think New Orleans is just going to spank the hell out of them. I don't even think this is even close. Last game for the NFC, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going on the road to Washington to play the Washington football team. What are you thinking?
John Todora throwing some Pat McAfee reference there. I see this as a low-scoring game. because of Washington's defense. Tampa Bay would have to respect that, especially that front four with Kerrigan and who I think is a defensive rookie of the year in Chase Young. They have
Yeah.
what it takes to burst through the O line of Tampa Bay and rattle Tom Brady. And if they do that more often than not, Tom Brady will not be able to find the likes of Godwin and even Antonio Brown down the field. So I see this as a low-scoring game, but eventually in the end, I see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning by less than a touchdown.
So Tom Brady's been known for years to be the guy who tears apart zone defenses. Washington plays a lot of zone, but the difference between what Washington does and what a lot of other teams in the NFL do now in their zone is Washington will rush only 4 people. And they've got a rotation of guys. Their first 4 are good. The next 4 are just as good. They've got a rotation of guys that they can rotate through and keep that pass rush fresh. So if Tampa comes out and does what they've done the last few weeks, which is not run the ball very much, throw the ball 50 times a game, that pass rush will eventually get to Tom Brady. And if it does, Tom could be in for a long day. But I think the key, as much as I liked Washington's defense, I think the key to what we're going to see here is Alex Smith. If Alex Smith is healthy and can play, the Washington Redskins are 5-1 with Alex Smith as their quarterback. Without Alex Smith, it's a completely different game. So if Alex Smith can play, and the difference will be this, the Washington football team and their defense can force Tom Brady to make mistakes. Alex Smith doesn't normally make mistakes, and that will be the difference if this is a close game. I really like Washington if Alex Smith is playing. So I think you and I agree on a few things, disagree on a few things. Let's move over to the AFC, though. Again, it's Super Wild Card Weekend. These are our picks for the AFC. Look, I want to start with a team, with a game that's very, very near and dear to my heart. Let's talk about Pittsburgh hosting Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't have their head coach. Cleveland's going to be missing a few players. This is going to be a very, very interesting game. Well, how do you see it?
I still have some questions regarding Cleveland's consistency, especially on offense. Just imagine they lost their wide receivers and they lost to the lowly New York Jets. And then there's one weekend wherein they put up 42 against the Baltimore Ravens in what I think is the game of the season. So they have their highs, they have their lows. So we don't know which Cleveland Browns team will appear against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So with that type of inconsistency, I would have to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers here because when push comes to shove, time and time again, Big Ben Roethlisberger has proven that he always finds a way to pull the Steelers into victory. And not to mention that defense, that suffocating defense of the Steelers that has carried them to 12 wins in the regular season. Of course, you have to respect Cleveland's defense with Myles Garrett and the boys. But again, the inconsistency and the offensive side of the ball, though they have a Kareem Hunt and a Nick Chubb on the backfield, I guess it will be Pittsburgh emerging victorious in this game.
So to me, this is the biggest mystery game of the week, and there's a lot of mysteries here for a lot of reasons. First of all, you don't know what Pittsburgh team's going to show up. This is going to be the Pittsburgh team that played the first 11 games of the year. This is going to be the Pittsburgh team that lost 3 games in a row. This is going to be the Pittsburgh team that played the first half of the Indianapolis game, or the Pittsburgh team that played the second half of the Indianapolis game. If you get the one in the second half, Cleveland's in trouble. If you get the one in the first half, Pittsburgh's in trouble. And for Cleveland, there's a tremendous amount of unpredictability. Their head coach usually calls their plays for them on the offensive side of the ball. He is their offensive coordinator, and Stefanski is very good at mixing up plays, isn't super predictable, really good at using both running backs, knows how to make Baker comfortable. Well, there's a new guy calling plays this week. And while he may be good at it, while Van Pelt, his name is Van Pelt, while Van Pelt may have done this before, it's going to be a different rhythm. So if he can get a rhythm with Baker and they have a good rhythm and it's not play calling that Pittsburgh is ready for, a lot of this is based off analytics and tendencies. If Pittsburgh can't figure out the tendencies, if Pittsburgh can't figure out what they're going to call next, it could be a long day for that defense. A defense that's normally very smart and knows what's going to happen next won't know what's going to happen. So this is a very unpredictable game for me. I'm still going to pick Pittsburgh just because they're home and just because I think they're the better team. And I also believe that Cleveland cannot possibly have come away from last week playing against mostly Pittsburgh's second teamers and thought to themselves, wow, that we won by 2 points. We're better than them. So Cleveland probably doesn't have the mental acuity to win this game. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. Let's go Buffalo hosting the Indianapolis Colts, who backdoored their way into the playoffs. What do you think about this game?
This is my second upset for Super Wildcard Weekend.
Really?
Because I really am questioning, or the entire Bills defense is really suspect. It's really an enigma, to say the least. Offense, no problem. They have a Josh Allen, a gunslinger. They have a Stephon Diggs. They have a Cole Beasley. And Devin Singletary can also bring some yardage. But the Bills defense hasn't proven that they can stop anybody. Time and time again, Josh Allen has to rack up the yards to be able to match with the points of the opposing team to be able to win the game. That has been their system and their philosophy all season long. And until the Bills defense wakes up and stops somebody, I think that the team with the better defense, with DeForest Buckner and the Indianapolis Colts, not to mention a steady offense with Phillip Rivers, T.Y. Hilton, and the emerging Jonathan Taylor, I see the Indianapolis Colts pulling an upset against the Buffalo Bills.
Well, look, I think the one thing you didn't mention is that Buffalo doesn't stop the run very well, and Indianapolis has really been able to grind out the run the last few weeks. Jonathan Taylor was really impressive last week. Now, he was really impressive against Jacksonville, so there is a caveat to what I just mentioned. But if they can get the ground game going early, make Phillip Rivers feel comfortable in the pocket, make him feel like it's not all on him, which is something that Phillip does not do well. When the game's all on him, he can implode in a heartbeat. But if they make him feel like it's not all on him and that they can rely on the run, they might be able to stick with him. I will say this. Buffalo has been on fire on offense. Their last month of the season has just been incredible. I mean, they're setting paces that are just well beyond anything anybody else is doing. Anybody who looks at me and tells me that the Kansas City Chiefs are the most explosive offense in the AFC has clearly not been watching Buffalo for the last 4 weeks. So, to me, as good as Indianapolis' defense has been, I think Buffalo is going to give them too much of a challenge. Stephon Diggs, Buffalo. I'm taking Buffalo on this one. Last game of the week, and I think to me this is the best game we're going to see. This is going to be the toughest and the best game we'll see all weekend long. The Tennessee Titans are hosting the on-fire Baltimore Ravens. Who you got?
Yeah, it could be the best game out of all the Super Wildcard Weekend games, and it's a throwback to the 3 yards in the cloud of dust era, because in one end you have J.K. Dobbins and the versatile Lamar Jackson, and on the other end, who I think is the offensive player of the year in Derrick Henry. So expect ground and pound throughout the game, and when push comes to shove, Tennessee has the advantage when it comes to the passing game, because Ryan Tannehill, under the radar, has been efficient with his passing attack with the guys like A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. But on the other side of the ball, the Titans couldn't also stop the aerial attack of their opposing teams. However, I guess they get the pass because Lamar Jackson isn't an accurate passer, or not that accurate when it comes to passing. He'd rather run the ball and gain yardage on the ground rather than throwing for 5 or 10 or 20 yards. He's more comfortable with that. And when it comes to the situation wherein Baltimore has to throw balls to be able to take the lead or tie the Titans, I don't see it happening. So I will take Tennessee, also because they are at home in this game.
So, I look at all this game, and I'm thinking this game may set a record for the most play-action passes that we've ever seen in a game, because both of these teams run to set up everything else. They run to set up the pass. Both of these teams have struggled on defense. Now, to me, Baltimore has more talent in that part of their team, and they have not performed very well. Their secondary, which is normally, historically, over the last few years, been among one of the better secondaries in football, has been really bad the second half of the season. Likewise, the Titans can't seem to cover anybody, stop the run. They're just not good on defense. They have somehow figured out a way to slug everybody into some type of submission. This game very well could be a mirror of what we saw with Cleveland versus Baltimore on that Monday night game, where it could be 40 to 42, and it could be 75 runs between the two teams or more. So I don't know who to pick in this one. I got to be honest. This one is really, really, really hard for me. I will say this. I would not want to play the Baltimore Ravens right now. I would just not want to play the Baltimore Ravens, and I would not want to have to tackle Derrick Henry in the 16th, 17th, or 18th game of the season when my body is tired. So this game is going to be very tough for both of them. His name is Lance Fernandez. Lance, I love the fact that you came on the show today. You were very brave about your picks. I wrote them all down here. That's what I was doing. I was making little notes in my phone so we can compare who picked all the winners and who picked all the losers and who got it right. Lance, thanks for coming on the show. We'll be reading all your good stuff over at whatsonsports.com. Lance is one of the readers over there. Let's get that thing out of my face. Thank you all for listening. We do broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10:30 in the morning. And we also do something special, which is you can download all these shows via podcast. So you can go to your favorite podcast platform, whether it's iTunes or Google, and you can download the What's on Sports podcast. We're downloaded by thousands of people on a daily. So if you guys want to go over and be a part of what we're doing, that would be great. Also, if you want a chance to win yourself $1,000 in cash, you can go over to our YouTube channel, which again is whatsonsports.com. Sorry, What's on Sports, not whatsonsports.com. Go over to YouTube and give yourself an opportunity right now to take a shot at $1,000. Now, I do want to talk about one last thing before we end the show. And it should be not a bummer, but it kind of is. So recently I had a friend of mine who passed away from cancer. And it was a long struggle for him. Unfortunately for him, at the end, he had to deal with COVID. He didn't get COVID, but COVID limited a lot of the things that he could do in the last 6 months or so of his life. And, I know that's tough for a lot of people. So I just saw a story, and I thought it was such a great story that I would share it with you guys. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but this did not happen in Pittsburgh. It actually happened in Cleveland, who were playing this week, where a dying man had a wish. His name was Tom Sapel, and Tom wished for his dying wish that he wanted to see one last Browns game. And there's a podcast called The Angry Browns Fans, which is just a great name for a podcast. And they worked with Baker Mayfield and his family to make sure that Tom could go and see one last Browns game. And there's a picture of him and his family that I believe I posted here. If you guys are watching at home, there's a picture of Tom and his family. They went to one last Browns game, which was the last game when Pittsburgh lost to the Browns. The Browns beat Pittsburgh. So we got to see the Browns win. And afterwards, he got to spend some time with Baker Mayfield and his wife. And I read a story, and he said that it was the best thing that he'd ever done, and that Tom could die happy now. So, there's nothing you could say that would probably make anybody feel any better about that story, except for the fact that at least you get the one last thing that you want before you get to go, and it's to be a true sports fan. So I applaud the people at the Cleveland Browns who were able to get Tom and his family in what is limited seating over there. I applaud Baker Mayfield and his wife for making time to spend time with them, and I applaud the podcast that actually heard about it. Again, the podcast is called Angry Browns. The Angry Browns Fans podcast. I'm not a Browns fan, but I'm going to go listen to it because anybody that puts that type of effort in to help a listener make his last wish come true should have more people listen. If you're a Browns fan and you happen to stumble upon this podcast and you've never heard of the Angry Browns Fans podcast, go over and listen to it. The guys sound like they have a great sense of humor with a name like that, and it sounds like they did something really, really nice to help out what seems to be a really, really nice guy and his family. We wish Tom Godspeed. My name is John Todora. I'm the host of the What's on Sports podcast. We come to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10:30 in the morning, live broadcast on YouTube and Facebook. And of course, you can download us on your favorite podcast platforms. Oh, God. Can't wait. This is going to be a great weekend. NFL football Saturday and Sunday. Follow me on Twitter, John Todora. I'll be tweeting out live tweet storms during the game. See you next week.